I'm back again with another favorite video. Today we are at the Buchanan Carnival 2025 hometown. You guys know the drill. I'm gonna give you guys a tour and let's go. We have a good ride lineup, so yeah. Over here we got the Sizzler. Right beside that is the Brute. Hold on, let me show you. Yeah, here's the Brute. Right across from that is the slushy stand and the funnel cake stand. We gotta make this kind of quick, so yeah. And then over here we got Fusion, aka Roundup. That's the food stand. Yeah, gotta make this quick because of copyrighted music. Right beside the booth is the Scat. Here's the ticket booth. Yeah, here's the carousel. Cola Mean Princess here, as you guys can tell. Here's where you get your wristbands. You got the Cloud Milano game. You got Saturn 16, aka Vertigo. Right beside that is the Himalaya. Cola Mean Princess Himalaya. You got the pizza stand. Yeah, so here's one side. Right across the pizza stand is Cook City. And then right beside Cook City is the Mousetrap, Rockstar. And right across from the Rockstar is the Super Shot. Has made a return. And then over here you got the Money Arcade game. And then over here is your standard games. And then right beside the games is New York Fun House, along with Taste of the Fair stuff. Yeah, so you got more games on this side. There's the Super Shot, upgraded Super Shot. And then if you come over here, you got another ticket booth. Another food stands down there. Banquet in the Bun, which belongs to Doolin. You got little kids rides, Willie the Well, Monkey Mayhem, the trampoline thing. You got the Rainforest Expo Wheel. We've seen the Rainforest Expo Wheel a lot this year. So, yeah, it's nice to see the Rainforest Expo Wheel back at Buchanan. That's where it belongs, Buchanan. You got the Dragon Wagon, more games on this side. And then over here you got the Tilt-A-Whirl, which we have not seen that since 2022. Yeah, we got a good ride lineup, we really do. And then more food stands over here. But yeah, they're here until Saturday, July 5th. So, come get yourself down here. So, yeah. What's going on, everyone? Back again with another fair video, and we are at the Salem Fair 2025. I'm gonna give you guys a tour and let's go. So over here we got the food stands over here. Hi. Regular attractions is providing again this year. They always provide for Salem, and we got a good selection of rides. If you guys saw the community post, I mentioned something about the Century Wheel making a return. And we got a new ride as well. Yeah, over here is like your standard stuff. But you guys kind of know the drill when it comes to this. So the rule about the tripod or selfie sticks or whatever is they are not allowed. I even asked people on Facebook. They said it was okay. And I go through security. Security says no. So, oh well. I want to try to have a better experience, and so far, that it did upset me a little bit, not gonna lie, because it's kind of hard to film without anything. So yeah, but I think I might have figured out the system. So at least I did ask permission. So I just hate that I got lied to on Facebook saying that I'm allowed to, and then turned out I'm not. But that's besides the point. We got food stands. Actually, I think that goes to the New Valley Fair. But yeah, so now let's get to the rides. Over here we got the carousel. More food stands over here. That goes to Fredericksburg Fair. But we'll be seeing Douglas in Fredericksburg anyway, so yeah. We got the classic wave swinger is back. Your standard games on this side. We got copyrighted music, so we're gonna go over here. There's the wave swinger. Atlantis Funhouse. Funnel cake stand, fried Oreos. Yeah, so I know I'm a little behind on the videos. But I do apologize for that. But yeah, more game, climb the ladder game, which I think that goes to Fredericksburg as well. Copyright. I gotta kind of make this kind of quick because we got copyrighted music. Right beside the Atlantis Funhouse is the AOM Vertigo, not Saturn 16. Saturn 16 is way better. I don't care what anyone says. Saturn 16 is number one. But yeah, more games over here. We got the Typhoon ride, AOM Typhoon. We got the classic giant wheel. Nice to see the giant wheel again. It's kind of nice to see Degler again. Hi. But yeah, original Five City stand number one. And then we got the KMG Afterburner Hydra, which is gonna be a huge no-no for me. Because I don't like Hydra. I don't like K&G Afterburners. I don't like them at all. There's the way to go. Tornado. Bumper cars. Yeah. And we got something else that made a return. Yeah, we got something that made a return. We had not seen since probably Fredericksburg. But we got the Music Express. We got the Riptide roller coaster. We got more copyrighted music, so yay on that. Icy Sand. We got the Haunted Mansion. We're gonna go over here real quick. There's the Music Express, which I don't really see where it's really upgraded myself. Because it said it was upgraded, I don't really see how. Still looks the same. We got the food stand. We got the Seaway. And we have a new Starship ride called the Odyssey. It's really nice. Shout out to my friend William. He told me about this ride. And there's that cheeseburger stand that I was telling y'all guys about. I swear, they have like the best cheeseburgers. But yeah, here's Odyssey. it looks nice. That's probably the best one I've seen. Spaceport, KMG. Got the cliffhanger. And those food stands are new as well down there. Cause they have, I mean, I'm sure they was here. It was probably on the other side, like below. But, yeah, more food. And, there's a cliffhanger. And what is this? Storm. But look, it's actually running. You guys remember the past couple of times I came to Salem? And, it wouldn't run? Well, guess what? Now she's running. So, good job, Degler. Y'all finally got something correct for once. No offense, Degler. And we got the turtle, which we'll be doing on Monday. So this is technically part 1. Gonna give you guys the off-ride footage and all that stuff. And then we got the Century Wheel, which is very nice. Hold on. It's nice to see the Century Wheel back. Don't get me wrong, the Grand Wheel is okay. I have a feeling the Grand Wheel will be at further close. But yeah, it's nice to see the Century Wheel back. That's where it belongs. Zero gravity. Food stands. Super shot. And little kid rides down there. And this classic ride, the zipper. So this will be the second zipper I've seen of the season. I don't really see that many zippers now. But yeah. Anyway, let's end it with the zipper. Bye.